name's Nate Green. Shameless self-promotion, that's my Twitter handle. Feel free to follow me if you have questions, stick around at the end. I plan to do this in 20 minutes or so. It'll be a little bit longer, and then I'll open up for questions. I expect you guys to have questions, so write them down and ask them at the end, and I'm looking forward to taking those on. I'm a history teacher, so I think this talk is a lot about the humanities, but it should adapt to, it is a malleable course, and I think it should, at least you should be able to grab parts of it and use it in your own courses. I hope that's how it goes. So if you find ways to do that, please do, and then share them with me, because I'm really excited to hear that. So this course, it's called New Media and Digital Identity. It's a course of the future. Come in, join us.
Thank you.
It's a course of the future, according to OESIS here, and I originally picked it up as mass media, so it was the old sort of like mass media, mass communication, sort of journalism 101 type of course, and I've changed it a lot and added to it and adapted it so that it's now more of a new media, social media course, and it has all the elements of these 21st century buzzwords of media literacy, digital citizenship, digital portfolios. It's got all that in it, and so I'll touch on a little bit of all of that today in this presentation. And again, I hope that some of this stuff in this course can relate to what you're doing. So the way that I want to talk about my evolution in creating this course is I want to talk about how I evolved as a teacher over the years and why I settled on this as like where I would hang my hat as the course of the future, the one that I want to teach the most. So when I started teaching in 2010, these were sort of my heroes, if you will. I would watch these TED Talks and get totally inspired about where teaching's going and what a great time it is for teachers right now. And so there's Ken Robinson, who obviously is, public schools killing creativity, and then there's Salman Khan, who's pioneering the flipped classroom math model. I'm sure you've probably seen those TED Talks. And there's another one that I liked even more, which was Sugata Mitra. And he had this TED Talk called School in the Cloud. I hope you've seen that one as well. If you haven't, you should. Essentially put a computer in Calcutta, and he had kids from the city who had never really seen computers, internet, learn biochemistry, and pass a college level exam. It was really remarkable, awesome. And I think what these talks, when they inspired me, one of the things that I concluded from this is that the internet is obviously this incredibly disruptive innovation in education. I don't think anyone here would disagree with that statement. And I think the reason we're here is to figure out how to harness this and change the way what we're doing so that we can take advantage of the power of the web. So as inspired as I would get by these TED Talks, they can also be really frustrating because TED Talks, in my opinion, were these like 30,000-foot view of education. They were idealistic, so yes, they were inspiring, and it was fun to like watch them and talk about them. But I don't think Robinson, Khan, and Mitra are teaching high school students. I don't even think they really know too much about high school students. And so as a result, how teaching actually went for me was, I'm at the ground level, one class at a time, and you guys all know no matter how hard you plan those lessons, sometimes they just flop, right? Or when you think you don't have something good, you're like, oh, just throw us at the wall and see if it sticks, and then you have the best lesson ever, right? And so it can be really frustrating when you're trying to sort of emulate these like awesome TED Talk thinkers, and it doesn't always go the way that you want it to, and you realize that they're too idealistic. So then at first I was like, well, I think the solution, I think it's like, oh, I gotta find these really cool apps, right? And so it's like, oh, this lesson I'm gonna use this app, and that lesson I'm gonna use this app. And sorry to the people out there who presented on apps today, but that was a shortcoming for a while. I was like totally obsessed with trying these new apps, and I was like, but all I'm doing is slightly adapting my lessons or adding some more tech to a lesson. And sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't. And I even caught myself using Facebook. I was having discussions on Facebook in class, and there's a picture of me and Morgan, and we're presenting to our board of trustees on using Facebook. But these are all temporary solutions. And I don't think that they adequately address the fact that the internet is this disruptive innovation. And it's supposed to be great for learning. And so it actually took my own journey for me realizing what was best for my professional development and what got me the best lessons on a day-to-day basis was people like you. Was this network that I had built of teachers who are out there blogging, trying new apps in education, writing about experiences, pushing back against that narrative that like we should be doing flipped classroom, or we should all be trying this new hot button app that all of a sudden got a lot of education funding, right? And there was actually that dialogue and that network that I had created that I would credit as really helping me become a good teacher, rather than these 30,000-foot TED Talks. And so eventually what I've sort of come up with is that, well, I'm passionate about teaching, and it was my teaching network that has made me a much better teacher. And so what I think the internet should be used for the most is passion-based learning through social media. And that's my solution to the quick fixes of like, let's throw an app onto this project, or the 30,000-foot idealistic fixes like, let's go all flipped classroom all the time. And so I think a lot of people are all saying that social media is this awesome tool, right? We call it revolutionary. And it was actually mostly after these Arab Spring protests that we were like, oh my God, it topples dictators, it's amazing, right? And then in this other side of this slide, I'm talking about, well, and then there's MOOCs, right? It's like, oh, now you can learn everything. So the internet, this computer, has more knowledge than I do as the teacher. I think we all agree that. So what do we do here? And despite the fact that we're calling it revolutionary, I put 3 question marks up there for a reason, because is it revolutionary? And so I passion-based learning, learned about being an educator through this network. It's been amazing for me, without a doubt. I don't think that it's amazing for our students. So this is to lend a little perspective, which you don't need because we do this too, but they start young, looking at these screens. And then this is always funny to me, but you can see this at a high school, walking the halls. You all do, because many of you teach in our schools. And it's not awkward. We don't even bat an eyelash at this anymore. Neither do the kids. And we do it, right? So this should lend some perspective. So they're spending all this time on the web, right? So Common Sense Media says that teens spend 9 hours a day on their screens, not including school and homework. That is amazing, right? And I've seen studies that say higher. I just don't believe them yet. And then another little stat for you guys is Pew Research, in a different question, asked teens, 13 to 17, and they report, 25% of them, or 24%, report that they are almost constantly online. So our kids are spending all this time here. It's supposed to be this revolutionary tool. The internet is supposed to be this disruptive innovation. It's supposed to be a leveling of the playing field in education. You're supposed to be learning from it. I just don't see that happening as much as it should. And so, again, I hope that this course provides a solution for that. But we first need to dispel with this notion that teens are digital natives and that teens understand these spaces, social media and the internet. They just don't. Oops, I think I went beyond it. They're not digital natives. And here's my proof for that. Already spoiled it. 2/3 of them who are online are multitasking when they're doing our homework. I know when I assign homework that they're going to multitask when they do it. I know that decreases retention, and I just chalk it up for a loss. But what concerns me more, and would really make Robinson angry, is only 3% of them are using their digital media on content creation. So the one thing that at least the internet and social media can be about creativity. And that's not even happening that much. And so that's been really frustrating to me in teaching. As I'll show you here, this guy would be very upset about that, who wants it to be, he thinks that it should be a tool for creativity. So here's a quote from him about his son. This is Ken Robinson. When my son James was doing homework for school, he would have 5 or 6 windows open on his computer. Instant Messenger was flashing continuously. His cell phone was constantly ringing, and he was downloading music and watching the TV over his shoulder. I don't know if he was doing any homework, but he was running an empire as far as I could see, so I didn't really care. Right, so I'm trying to provide some vision and try to jog your memory of what it's like when we walk through our schools and our kids are on their screens. And when they go home, we know they're on their screens. And it's supposed to be this great tool where they're supposed to be doing a ton of learning there, and I just don't think they're doing a lot of learning there. So my course is to try to fix that. As I said, new media and digital identity. So that's my journey through education and what brought me to this course, and I want to try to fix this. So my course is heavy on digital citizenship. I want my students in the active citizen consuming information online. And I don't want them as the passive consumers that are just scrolling an Instagram feed or stuck on Netflix just consuming entertainment. I understand that this distinction here between information and entertainment is often very blurred. I also understand that this distinction between active citizen and passive consumer is often very blurred. And that's fine. I think that when you're on your screens, when you're in your social media, you should be able to do both. I would just say that right now, if you look at it, oh yeah, Khan's, he would want them to learn on the internet as well. He wants them getting information on the internet. I just don't think he's teaching the right stuff. I'll get back to that. And so I think we can fix that simply by doing two things. One is helping them curate and consume new media, usually through their social media, purposefully. And then two, use that learning and that purpose that they've established as when they check their social medias up to promote learning and then create a digital identity. So it's that simple. How we get them to do this is where it gets a little more interesting and fun, and that is, I think it should be done by passion-based learning. So if you walk these halls today, you hear a lot about PBL. They're not referring to passion, they're talking about project-based learning. So I'm talking about the other PBL. And in my book, the better PBL, which is let's help them learn online by allowing them to do that with something that they're passionate about. And the way that we would do that is we'd set up personalized learning networks for our students. That's what this course sets out to do. You know, I give up. And these personalized learning networks are to try to fix this issue. So what I've photoshopped here is I think when a teenager gets online, and it's probably true of us too, is we have a fire hose of social updates that are just blasting us in the face. Someone posted a picture of their lunch, someone posted a picture of their dog, someone's talking about the wedding they went to this weekend, we're talking about OESIS Conference. Wait, OESIS Conference? Wait, that might be on the informational side. I think our teens are really guilty of spending a lot of time in the social, and I said we probably are too. And less time getting stuff that's informational. Now again, I acknowledge that this is a tough word to define here, but as a room full of teachers, I would say, we would know when our kids are accessing content online or through their social media that we would say it's a little bit more academic or a little bit more informational or might benefit them a little more in their learning. And I just think that they're getting a drip of that. So fire hose, faucet drip, social informational, how do we fix that as educators? And again, we as adults probably have issues with this ourselves. And the answer, of course, is what I was just saying, passion-based learning through social media. So that when they're on their screens with all this time they spend on there, they're using it for learning, for accessing informational, academic content that we'd be proud of. So how does that happen? So we need our students to identify passions, and we can say, for now it's interests, right? So they express some things that they're interested in, and we help them build these networks. So how do we do that? Well, if you have a kid who's interested in interior design, you would steer that student to Pinterest or Instagram or whoever the famous interior designers are. You have them follow them, read what they're writing, and then see who they follow and what they're reading, right? And all of a sudden we build up a little network so that your stream, fire hose or the faucet, starts to deliver information to you that makes you learn more about something that you care about and you want to know about. Right? So that same thing could be true for a kid who's interested in politics, right? I'd probably send that kid to Twitter, and I'd say, here are some feeds that I would pick up on the left side of the aisle, on the right side of the aisle, somewhere in the middle, right? And then when you read articles and you like what you've read, follow that person, see who they follow, and build, right? And so that takes time. But that would happen through one-on-one interaction between teacher and students. And that usually could be as easy as something where it's an assignment for a student. Well, then Google, best 30 Twitter feeds, whatever, about whatever topic that may be for whatever kid. So it's going to be different for every kid, but it is easy to build for us no matter that kid's passions or interests. And then this is the order of operations that as they access that network and when they build that network, at first, I'm not telling them to use this socially. I'm not telling them to act like they know something. I'm just saying learn, read, watch, participate, see what's going on. And then as you start to read, watch, etc., things that you like, then you see her start curating that. So on Twitter, that could be clicking the like button because then it goes to your profile so you can find it later. You could be doing that on YouTube by subscribing to channels that are delivering content that you think are helping you find all your interests. It could be on a third-party app like Digo, right? So where you can highlight stuff that you find online and save it for later, right? Eventually, of course, I want us to fix that stat from earlier about the 3% of people who are creating content, where I think after spending some time in this network and learning something about what they're interested in, they should follow their passions by starting to share the stuff that they like, and then start to produce their own content. And that will put you in a professional network where people will collaborate with you. As I was saying earlier about myself, it is invaluable, so important for me that when I post a blog post about something I'm doing in my class, I get feedback from my Personalized Learning Network. That's why I tweet it to certain hashtags. I want feedback. I want people to push back against what I'm doing because it ultimately benefits me as a learner and as a teacher. And so not only do you have to be in these spaces and learning in these spaces, but you have to be understood as a learner in these spaces who's interested in this stuff. And that would require sharing and collaborating. So this course, the shared collaborating would be on the back end of this course, but it definitely needs to be something that happens for our students in these networks. So how do I instruct this, or how do I make this happen in my class? I try to put sort of how I do this. One is I think our kids need to be efficient when they're on their phones and their screens. And that means they need to know what apps, extensions, etc. help them with their workflow so that they can consume content and can do it in a way that's efficient. I teach a whole lesson on hotkeys. And then when I walk around the back of the room and they're using their mouse, I shake my finger at them and say, why'd you have to reach for your mouse there? That's Command C, that's shuffle tabs, whatever it is. And he goes, oh, Mr. Green, it's only 2 seconds. And I say, total that up over a lifetime. And I say, oh yeah, you're spending 9 hours doing it today, so total that up over a lifetime, right? So one, I think they should be efficient. And so that's why it's okay when you're on your social media sometimes to take your time, read social, see what your friends are up to, cool. But every once in a while as well, I think you should be consuming information. And then secondly, the second thing as sort of the content of the course, if you will, is what I would call a social internet economy. I think kids should understand these platforms and these atmospheres, the environments that they would spend their time in. So that's why I teach things like digital portfolios, branding, data mining. They got to know why these companies want all this information, what they're doing with it. The fact that privacy, the fact that none of their stuff disappears. Censorship, search engine optimization, unbundling, and epistemic inequality. These are some of the topics that I would cover in this course. Understanding that these topics are only to support, to scaffold our kids learning about their own interests and their own passions. So in some way this is auxiliary content designed to support their interests and their passions in this class. That also gets us to media literacy. It's essential. I think media literacy is an essential skill for our kids, especially in high schools. I'm sure some of your schools are doing it great. And we need our kids to know that what they're consuming online, whether or not it's valuable information, it's scholarly information, it's biased, etc. There's no substitute for experience in terms of becoming media literate, but there's definitely a lot we can do as teachers to get our students there, to have them analyze the sources that they're consuming. I think it's incredibly important. And then lastly, as I was talking about earlier, what social media they choose to use, or how they're getting this information on their screens, is totally up to a kid and his or her interests. So for some kids, it might be email, it might be subscription newsletters, right? I gave you an example of a kid earlier who I think Pinterest would have been best, right? And I'm not afraid to say that someone who says, Mr. Green, I want to go into investment banking. So well, you got to actually physically get the Wall Street Journal and read it as a newspaper, right? So it totally depends. It's different based on interests. But I think that it's something that we need to evaluate and consider. And then finally, as teachers, I think one of the most important things we can do, and this is a Mitra example, is we need to encourage them. We don't have to be experts in interior design or what's going on Wall Street or what's going on in politics. We don't have to be experts. All we have to do is care and go, oh, that's awesome. You learned that today. You read that today. Oh, tell me why. Why is that going on? Or hey, are you sure about that source? Are you sure that that's a good source for you to know? Right? So that all we're doing is encouraging them to continue to research and continue to learn. And we're telling them that we care about this and they should care about this. And all of a sudden we're using internet, social media as learning, right? So Mitra famously created a granny cloud. He hired a bunch of retired, mostly women, in the UK. and he had them Skype into these children in Calcutta, and they would talk about biochemistry, which the grannies knew nothing about. And they would go, "Oh, awesome! Keep going! Why?" You know, and it worked. And they passed this college level test. So evaluation in this course. Again, we're working one-on-one with students to create these networks. And then how would we evaluate this? Are they doing these things, learning, curating, sharing, collaborating? I think throughout the process, they should be also creating a digital portfolio. So they're also putting up stuff that they're reading at first, and then later putting up their own content about what they've been reading and learning and how their passions go, and how they've sort of evolved and they're thinking about those things. So I think it's easy course in that sense. As I said, it's mostly like sort of humanities, a lot of that's gonna be writing, but for a kid who wants to be an architect, that's a model that they're showing you and they're posting about online to create this digital portfolio. So that's instruction and evaluation. And then my favorite thing about this course is once you help a kid build a personalized learning network and follow their passions online, it's a self-sustaining cycle where they can do this over and over and over. So they have this interest, and we help them learn, and when they're interested in what they're learning, they retain it better. And when they go through this process, they find more things that they like, they care about, they want to know more about. And then we can help them expand their network, learn more, it's about stuff they're interested in, retain more. And for a kid who all of a sudden says, well, actually, I'm not so sure that I want to be an interior designer. Okay, fine. It's really easy to unfollow those 20 accounts or to pivot in your social media and find something new. And I think with all of us as teachers, where our talent is they're saying, okay, well, why didn't you like this? What about this network did you like? Okay, let's go from there, right? And again, it's that encouragement, it's that care, it's those one-on-one conversations. And you have that kid say, here's what I'm interested in. Say, okay, well, let's explore. And we'll know soon whether or not you're really interested in it, right? And we can just as easily change it. And then the final thing, and you've already heard someone mention Dan Pink yesterday, and what he says it delivers happiness in our lives, mastery, belonging, autonomy. I absolutely think that this course does this perfectly. They have autonomy, they're building their own network, they're learning their own content. Mastery, they take something they like and they get good at it. And then belonging, well, they create these networks of other people who seem to like the same stuff and want to read the same stuff and react and comment and share as well. So I think it perfectly provides the steps that they need to live a happy life, according to Dan Pink. But this is how I found fulfillment in teaching as well. Just finding this network, learning about something I care about or trying to achieve mastery. Doing so autonomously, whether my school provides the PE for it or not, I'm going to do it. And then finding this community, and that's why I'm at a place like OESIS, and I'm putting my Twitter handle at the front of this presentation is because I believe in that network and that community. And so I think over time, this is the evolution that we should see in our children if they're following this. And again, not just us versus them. I acknowledge that we also could probably do a better job with this. You start with something you're interested in, learn about it, becomes a passion of yours, right? And then you end up sort of becoming a master or proficient in it, and hopefully then someday expert. And again, it's all relative. And then as you do that, become knowledgeable about something, then you can engage in the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy, like synthesis. So innovation often comes from, getting good at something, finding something else you like, and synthesizing, right? So that's why I particularly love this course. And finally, it just gives them a purpose when they're on these spaces, when they're on the internet, when they're in their social media. They have something to do that they're passionate about, that they like, that they want to learn about, and it gives them a purpose when they're on those screens. They're always going to be on those screens. How they're using them is what we can try to change, and that's what this course tries to do. And again, I don't think that this course, it has to be done just in this course. It can be applied to all types of different courses. So I teach history, as I said at the outset, and I've incorporated passion-based learning through social media into my history class. My history class is called Contemporary World History. So I gave them 80 Twitter feeds about what's going on in international news. And that's how we start class, 10 minutes of every day. They read what's going on in international news, and they start asking questions. And I say, okay, if that's what you're interested in, if that's what you want to know about, let's go. And then we start talking about it. And again, I don't have to know everything. I just use the granny cloud idea. Oh, what did you read? Where did you read that? Did you read the whole article? Was the article biased, right? And we're doing all these things in history as well. And I hope that that would work in all of your classes. I put a couple of student quotations about how people feel in this class, about this class up, but as data to prove that this class is working, but I'm too modest to read them all. So I'm just going to go to my last slide of what I just said, which is you can do it. This sort of process of teaching them the skills and giving them the tools are things that you can do in your classes, and then help the kids find their own content, find stuff that they're interested in, that they want to learn about. And so that's all I have for you guys. I thank you very much for your time. I want to hear questions. I'm sure you have lots of questions. So I appreciate first, the fact that you guys listened to me this whole time, and secondly, that no one interrupted me to ask questions, so I'll take them now.